Welcome to Accent on Education. My name is Laura Hoover, the Director of Communication for Culpeper County Public Schools. We have a great show planned for today. Joining us today will be our Executive Director of Operations, Dr. Donovan O'Brein. And we also have the pleasure of talking with the Culpeper County Public Schools Teacher of the Year, Ms. Vallola Abbott. So first up today, Mrs. Abbott, welcome to Accent on Education.
Thank you for having me today.
We're so excited to talk to you today and hear all about your journey as a teacher and being Teacher of the Year. So first of all, how long have you been a teacher?
I've been a teacher for 26 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
A long time.
That's excellent. And have you always taught in Virginia?
No, I taught in California. It's where I started, and then eventually my husband and I and our little family moved to Nevada because my husband made a career change, and he studied to become a teacher, but in California there was a recession at the time, so we decided to go to Nevada and see if we could get experience. He could get experience there, and there we taught for 3 years, and we needed a more stable community to raise our son. So we decided to apply to Virginia, and here we are.
Excellent.
Fast forward.
Awesome.
Many
Well,
years.
that's great.
Yeah.
So you are an English as a second language teacher at Yowell Elementary School.
Yes.
Now, how long have you been at Yowell?
I've been there for about 5 years, I believe. I lost track.
Okay.
I lost track. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. When you're working hard, it's easy
Yeah.
to lose track. How long have you always been an ESL teacher?
Prior to becoming an ESL teacher, I was a classroom teacher in California. I taught second grade bilingual education, and then that was changed by an initiative by a multimillionaire who wanted to get rid of bilingual education, and he succeeded. So our program changed to sheltered immersion to conform to the rules that were set by the state. So I taught there, continued to teach, but in a sheltered immersion program, meaning we could use Spanish, but only a certain percentage of the time, and also to clarify only when students needed clarification. So the population was mostly Hispanic, and we also had students coming in from different parts of the world. But 11 years, I was there for about 11 years before we moved to Nevada.
Okay. Well, interestingly, I taught second grade bilingual education in Arizona at the same time that these initiatives were coming through, and had the exact same experience where overnight all the bilingual teachers became SEI teachers.
Yes.
So that is something that happened across the country. It's
Yes.
interesting. So let's talk about Yowell Elementary. This year, you're the Teacher of the Year.
It's an honor and a privilege. I feel so honored to have won, to have even been nominated for this award, and I feel very blessed to be working at a great school with a great crowd of teachers, and my administrators are just, I call them cream of the crops. And I joke around and I tell my principal, I was privileged to have a wonderful experience when I first started teaching back in California, and I had the most supportive principal in California. And I'm telling you, working under principals that really care about their staff, I have found in my experience, it's far and in between to have that experience, to be able to repeat that experience again. But I am just, I feel so blessed because my administrators fit that description of being people who go far above and beyond to help their staff. And I am forever grateful for that.
Well, that is great to hear. So when and how did they share the news with you that you had been selected as the Yowell Teacher of the Year?
I was approaching my kindergarten group. I was about to open the classroom door to gather my students, and my principal, Ms. Fiscus, came to me and said, "Ms. Abbott, I have an announcement." And I thought, oh boy, what happened? I just thought, oh boy, what's going on here? She said, "I want you to know your colleagues have nominated you for Teacher of the Year." And I felt like I felt like I was going to faint because it felt surreal. It didn't feel, I just was amazed and honored, and I felt like I could cry, and I told her, "Excuse me, but I'm going to burst into tears because this is, I had never expected this." And like I'm telling you again and again that the staff that I work with, I'm so blessed because the colleagues and the camaraderie is a gift.
Well, that's
and
great.
I'm able to experience that every day and learn from my colleagues, and the students are able to benefit from all of the collaboration and hard work. And I want to say from the beginning that this award I want to dedicate to all my colleagues at my school who I work with every day, who show up to work and put their whole heart and soul into teaching, to helping our students reach higher levels of learning. I want to dedicate this award to them.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. It does take a village. Definitely does. So you've talked a little bit about your colleagues. Let's talk about your students. What have you learned from your ESL students at Yowell Elementary?
Well, my students are great teachers, for one, and I got the idea of learning from my students from my experience in a program that I was in when I was in college. I was awarded a scholarship and work experience working under the guidance of veteran teachers who became my mentors, and my mentors explained to me, it's really important that you study your students, not just deliver the information to them, but you have to figure out a way to make them connect to the learning, and you have to figure out what's going on with them that is going to stop the learning. And building that rapport with the students over the years has been my goal in understanding why the student is not responding to the teaching or the learning or the activities, and taking time to talk to the students so that the student gives me a better understanding of what action needs to be taken so that student becomes more successful. So I would say definitely building rapport with the students, taking time to talk and letting them talk and listening to help them. Because, they come to school and they come to school with different issues, and it's not a picture perfect scenario every day, but you have to, my job as a teacher is to figure out how to best meet their needs. And that is taking time out to say, how is it going? Tell me what's going on. Is there something that I can help you with today? And letting them talk. Sometimes it's hard because I'm on a tight schedule, so we walk and talk usually in the hall, and the students are able to. I think it's building that rapport so the students feel that I care as a teacher and that they matter.
Right.
And what they say, they know that I have their best interest.
Well, from everything I've heard, I know you're doing a great job at that.
Thank
so that's
you.
awesome. Thinking about people out there who might be watching that don't know, aren't familiar with the school, what do you think they need to know about the job of a public school teacher? What do you think that people don't know about what you do every day?
I think I would want the public to know that teaching is, although it's difficult, that it's a very meaningful job, and the students are our future, and without teaching and teachers, the students wouldn't be able to prepare for their future. I believe that we have a wonderful gift of our children, and we need to prepare them for their future, and being a teacher is part of that process, working together with colleagues like I shared earlier, and figuring out the best way to meet the students' needs so that they can have success and they can have goals and they can learn how to work through difficulties in the classroom, difficulties with their peers, and they can have success and they can grow up to be who they want to be in terms of reaching their goals and turning around and giving back to their community. So in a nutshell, teaching is important because it's our purpose as a community to invest in our children. They're our future, and without them, you know, our civilization couldn't continue. I mean, we're here to help, and it's long hours, but it's worth it because in the long run, we're investing in our future.
That's great. So earlier this year at a school board meeting, Dr. Brads and Mrs. Metzger were recognizing all of the teachers of the year for all the schools in Culpeper County. And they got to the end and they announced the Culpeper County Teacher of the Year, and your name was announced.
Oh my
what
gosh.
were you thinking in that moment?
Wow. Utter surprise. I was not expecting it. I felt such honor. I was so honored to be even considered for Teacher of the Year to begin with. And when my name was announced, I almost had a moment of unbelief. You know, I try very hard to make sure that I give 100% to my job, to my students, and I didn't think that the award would be given to me because I have, you know, colleagues that have beautiful talents and wonderful gifts in being able to teach students. And as my principal told me too, she said, Viola, you have those beautiful gifts too. And I guess I could say in a nutshell that I never considered my name to be called. It was a big surprise. Wow. But I feel I feel very honored and appreciated. And it's a wonderful feeling, but I still feel like I have to process it. I don't know what other way to put it.
Well, you have earned it. You deserve this honor. And I really appreciate you coming and talking with me today here on Accent.
Thank you.
Mrs. Abbott will go on to the state level to compete for the 2025 Virginia Teacher of the Year. So everyone in Culpeper is rooting for her in that. And we will hear sometime in the spring 2024 who will be selected for that. Find your dream job in Culpeper, Virginia. Come to the Culpeper County Public Schools Job Fair on Saturday, April 20th, 2024 at CTEC from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. At the job fair, we'll have on-site interviews and all schools in CCPS will be represented. Use the QR code to register or register online at www.culpeperschools.org. We look forward to seeing you there. Welcome back to Accent on Education. It was great talking with the CCPS Teacher of the Year, Vallola Abbott. And our next guest today is Donovan O'Brein, Culpeper County Public Schools Executive Director of Operations.
Hi,
Welcome.
good morning, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here today. So operations, what does that mean? Tell me about what's included
Operations, we have a motto in operations where we say we make school happen. And the reason why is because it's a multitude of departments. We include technology, which everybody needs their Chromebooks so they could do their online schoolwork, as well as our maintenance and facilities, We do have transportation, making sure kids get to school, and above all, food service. So we make sure kids get fed. So that's all of what falls underneath the umbrella for operations.
All right, so that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Takes a lot to make
Absolutely.
school happen.
Yeah, and luckily I have 4 great directors who manage each department, and I assist them in monitoring and tracking how we do our job.
All right, well, that sounds great. Well, one of the hot topics right now, as we are looking at winter weather, is school closings.
Yes.
And I believe that falls under your job functions
Under my
there.
purview.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say that's probably one of the most complicated things that we do, because it seems like whatever decision we make will make a lot of people happy and a lot of people angry. It goes both ways. It's kind of a no-win situation sometimes. It does help when it's blatantly obvious. If we get 3 feet of snow, kids know they're not going to school. It gets more complicated when we have those early morning periods of freezing rain or sleet, just some of those things that you may not see because we start our drive so early. We begin our process about 4 in the morning. So sometimes when we're out looking at the roads, it's not necessarily the conditions you might see when you wake up at 6 or 7 o'clock.
So how does CCPS make that decision starting at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Well, typically what happens is I'll drive the roads, and so will maybe 3 or 4 of our other transportation department folks. And we will start looking at what kind of conditions they're in. We will call our emergency operations center, the dispatcher, and find out what law enforcement is reporting in terms of road condition. We also belong to text groups, so we're also communicating with neighboring counties. And the advantage of doing that is that we all kind of try to be on the same page depending on what kind of weather event we're facing. Now, granted, we don't always kind of fall in line, because sometimes flooding may be more severe in areas in Madison County than it is in Culpeper. So we'll kind of address those things as needed. But principally, the idea is we collect data by running the roads, we look at road temperatures, we talk to each other and find out what roads are in the best condition, which ones are in the worst condition, and then ultimately we get a decision together or a recommendation that we present to the superintendent.
Okay. So what are the possible options for closings and delays? What options does CCPS use?
Well, most of the time we look at either a 2-hour delay if it's early in the morning or a cancellation depending on the severity of the weather we encounter. Now, granted, we try to make the decision the night before, and that's become a standard policy now, where if it looks pretty evident that we're not going to have school, we try to get that out by 5:30 or 6 p.m. the night before. The difficult part, again, is when you wake up in the morning and we're encountering ice or we're encountering snow, and we have to make that decision by 5:30 a.m. And we try to communicate that, and we actually run through your office as Director of Communication, and you make sure that information is widespread and it goes to media outlets and the like.
So a lot of times being in that communication office, I hear people say, the roads are fine. Why, I can go get through town. Why are we closing school?
Yeah.
How do you answer that?
Well, most of the time it depends on who I'm talking to and where they live. Culpeper's a large county. We cover a lot of different terrain. The eastern part of the county is more Piedmont. It's flatter. It doesn't have as high elevations as the western part. And it actually we get more flooding cases out there because you have the Rapidan River, the Rappahannock, and those rivers can play havoc with some of the roads that run along them. But when it comes to snow, obviously the western part of the county, when we get out to Boston, Amosville, those areas have covered roads in terms of sometimes they're gravel roads, but they're covered so they don't get as much sunlight and they hold the ice longer. And while town has their own snow removal that goes into action really quick. Honestly, I live in town, and they're out there as soon as the last snowflake drops. They're already starting to clear roads. While VDOT takes a little bit longer for those secondary roads that are further out.
Right.
And that's always the consideration. We have to look closely at those roads that are out off of, going out 229, going out 729, going out 522. Once you get closer to the border with Rappahannock and Orange, you're going to run into more areas that haven't been touched. So we do our best to try to communicate that to the folks that live in that area, just to understand it might take longer for their roads to meet what we'd call the threshold, the condition of where our buses can travel along them.
Okay. Well, I know that it's a very difficult time of year for your department in making those decisions, but also know that safety is the first priority.
Absolutely.
Well, as you mentioned, as Director of Communication, we work together to get the word out once the decision's made. And we have a variety of ways that we communicate that. And a lot of times we're asked about, well, how can someone in the community find out when schools close? Because we have calls that go to parents, texts, calls.
We do.
What are some of the ways we can get that word out to the community?
Well, in terms of cancellations, well, obviously one of the things we do is we call it a robocall, but an automated call system. And we use that for many different things. I mean, the principals do their weekly message as well. So if you're receiving those, you're going to receive the calls that come from your office in terms of cancellations. We also post it on social media. You tweet it out or X it out, whatever it's called now.
So we
and
have
social media.
Facebook, Instagram, and X. It goes out.
Absolutely.
And I also want to mention that CCPS has an app, Culpeper Schools, and the closing and delay messages always go out to our app.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times the first place that it goes. So if there's anyone out there that would like to get it, go to
you want to be first?
the App Store or the Play Store and search Culpeper Schools, and you'll have everything right there on your phone. So that is a lot of great information about transportation and school closings. But another hot topic right now is facilities. So when I'm out driving around in Culpeper, I can't help but notice it seems like there's a lot of new rooftops going up.
There are. Absolutely. We do have a lot of developments going up, a lot of houses being built in town and also out in the county.
So it looks like we're growing pretty quickly. What information do you have about that? What can you tell us about that? With that
well,
impact?
and it's a question I hear quite frequently. And in fact, I just read an article in the Star Exponent talking about the amount of growth we've had. I guess it said we're about 2.9%. We're leading in the region as compared to the neighboring counties around Culpeper. And I think back when I first came to Culpeper in the early 2000s, we had a housing boom that occurred.
Right.
We had a lot of Virginia Avenue. A lot of that was built out, and the growth was about 6%. And when I think about back to that time in the schools, they became crowded really quick. So luckily, we have a committee that is the Joint Planning Committee, or the Capital Improvement Joint Committee that includes members from the Board of Supervisors as well as the school board. And belonging to that committee means that we really are focusing and looking at growth and trying to come up with a prediction of how that growth is going to impact our schools.
Okay.
And we've done some studies ourselves as a school division, but we've also reached out to a company, a third-party vendor called Cooperative Strategies, who's also provided us what I would say is great detailed information with projections based on the number of building permits that go out, the number of housing developments that are going up, and figuring out exactly how many students those particular housing developments are going to yield. And that's going to help us project what we're going to need in terms of capacity within our schools.
Okay, so what is CCPS doing, or how are we preparing for this growth?
Well, a couple of things I'm going to kind of discuss what we're doing at each level. The high school in particular, Culpeper County High School seems to be good in terms of its capacity. Eastern View is getting a little more crowded. So one of the things that we did in terms of an incremental step is we've converted some of the locker bays to classroom. And Eastern View was designed with the idea that we can increase capacity by closing in certain common areas. And because of that, we are now able to add 10 additional classrooms to Eastern View. So in terms of some of those housing developments, especially on the south side of town, out by Highland, Laurel Ridge, those increasing student numbers will be able to fit into Eastern View with some of the additional space that we're building out right now.
Okay, and it seems like the kids don't use those lockers
They don't
anyway
really.
these
Yeah,
days.
we still have some locker areas, but in particular, we took roughly 2 of the major grade level locker bays out, and those yielded 3 classrooms.
That's
each.
great. Okay, so that's high school. What's happening on the middle school level?
Well, as you might recall, middle school wise at Floyd T. Binns, we did move our central office out of Floyd T. Binns with the intent of creating additional classrooms. And that was accomplished, and we've funded and completed that construction. And now we're looking at Culpeper Middle School. And with the blessing of the Board of Supervisors, which we greatly appreciate, we have been given the go-ahead to pursue a renovation of Culpeper Middle School, as well as the construction of a new elementary school. So both of those things, with their blessing, is what we're pursuing now. The advantage is we're not going to be caught flat-foot. We are seeing the growth coming, we're anticipating the growth, and we're going to start construction to meet those demands. With CMS in particular, we'll be doing a comprehensive renovation, which will include the addition of 40,000 square feet of new space, which will provide additional programming capacity.
Now, I think I remember from those discussions there are some measures in place because that will be a larger middle school, but the design is unique. Tell me about that.
Well, part of the design is using what we call the house concept, which is similar to how Eastern View was designed and built out, with the idea that each grade level would have a wing. But in this case, instead of a wing, it would really be a tower. And it's going to incorporate a lot of light from outside. If you've been to Culpeper Middle School, it was built in 1977. So it kind of has a lot of those features and wasn't really built for the aesthetics of bringing in light, and even kind of the air systems were older. This renovation is going to completely replace the HVAC, the heating and air conditioning, all those things, what we call the systems of the school, to make it a cleaner space and ensuring that it's a healthy space as well. So our goal is, by the design and the project design, is they're going to build out these towers. They're going to develop a better sense of traffic flow. And I mean that outside the school as well as inside the school. So students are going to be able to move about the school in larger hallways, brighter hallways, using improved lighting and natural lighting, and getting to a larger cafeteria that's more accommodating for the numbers that are there. And at the same time preserve a lot of the things that we like about CMS. Number one, the gym. I mean, the gym's phenomenal.
Right.
The arts programs, the space for our electives, we want to keep that space, if not add to it, because we have such great programs going on there. And part of what the architect understands is, how do we make this even more useful for those programs, and at the same time add the technology that makes it current. And that's kind of the direction we're heading there.
Sounds exciting.
It is. It's very exciting.
Is there a timeline for the project?
Well, what we've done so far is we do have the architects selected, and they are working on the designs, and they're doing the studies. Most recently, they went and did a complete survey of the actual school and the land to determine exactly how that's going to look, because this is going to be an occupied renovation.
Right.
And that makes things a little more complicated for them to gauge and develop timelines. You might remember Culpeper County High School was done as an occupied renovation. So it is possible. Sometimes students will be in one hall but not allowed in another hall while the renovation's being done. The same thing's going to happen at CMS. However, we don't anticipate really kicking off or starting that project until after this coming summer, because we still have to do all the real work of finish up the design. Then we have to get a contractor, and that's a whole bidding process.
Right.
And then, of course, with the blessing of the Board of Supervisors, funding has to be earmarked for it. So all those things are still in process.
Okay.
So the timeline that the architect establishes is based on what they feel can be done. But once we actually kick off and start looking at walls and taking down walls, we'll have more concrete ideas of where we're going.
All right. Well, that sounds really exciting. A lot going on. Is there anything else notable happening in operations?
If you've been by the CCHS CMS campus, you can see that the cell phone tower has been put up, and it's going to help in a lot of ways. Not only is it a revenue generator for the school division, it also is going to assist folks with connectivity, because it is going to improve self-service throughout the town and the areas like the meadows, as well as some of the neighboring locations. So
Okay.
that's an exciting thing that's happening as we speak.
Well, that sounds great. So thank you so much for joining me today. There's a lot going on in the operations department.
There is, absolutely.
So if the viewers at home would like to see how these projects are going, how do they stay up to date with what's going on in operations?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say every month we do have a school board meeting, and at that school board meeting, I give a report to the board talking about these various projects.
Okay.
So if you tune in and you watch the school board meeting, it comes with a nice little presentation that includes photographs and images of what's happening. And you will see, as the CMS project, for example, continues to evolve, you'll start seeing what those pictures look like, what the plans look like, what the construction's starting to look like when I give those presentations to the board.
Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
So check out those school board meetings for follow-up information. And also, if you would like to receive those school closing notifications that Dr. O'Brien was talking about, make sure that you sign up and download the Culpeper Schools app, where you can have everything Culpeper Schools in your pocket.
Introducing the brand new app for Culpeper County Public Schools. It's everything Culpeper Schools in your pocket. This is the home screen. Tap the schools icon in the bottom right to select a specific school. Tap the 3 horizontal lines in the bottom left to see all the menu items. To turn on push notifications, tap Settings and select Push Notifications. The Events section shows a list of events throughout the school. You can use this button to add an event to your calendar, or tap here to share the event with friends and family. The feed is where you'll find updates from administration about what's going on throughout the school, whether that's celebrating a student's success or reminding you about an upcoming deadline. Search Culpeper Schools in the App Store or Play Store to explore the app for yourself. It's everything Culpeper Schools in your pocket.
Once again, make sure that you download the Culpeper Schools app on your phone to keep up to date with all of the events going on and all the information about Culpeper County Public Schools. Thank you for watching Accent on Education, and we look forward to seeing you next time.